So in the previous video, we did a lot with sine and cosine. We've talked about a little bit of what is cosine and what is sine, how do you find the values of r, and finding the sine of theta and the cosine of theta using the formulas, and also given some angles, figuring out what they are. Okay, so let's continue with a little bit more questions like that. So let's say I want to find the sine of pi over 6 and the cosine of pi over 6. Okay, so let's say we wanted to figure out something that looked like that. Now, of course, you could use your calculator and it will give you an answer, but I want you to be able to do it like this so that you can try to think of a strategy so that you know where exactly all of these values that the calculator is giving you, where is the calculator getting them from. So, one thing to know is what exactly is pi over 6. So if you think about it in terms of angles, pi over 6 is just equal to 30 degrees. Okay, so let's start off by drawing where 30 degrees is going to be. So here is theta equals 0, and here is theta equals 90 degrees, or pi over 2. So let's just write 90 degrees or pi over 2. So pi over 6 or 30 degrees is going to be somewhere around here. So it'll be somewhere here. Okay, just try to estimate. Okay, let me not make it that. Okay, around here. Okay, so here is theta equals pi over 6 or 30 degrees. So if I were to look at this angle is going to give me 30 degrees. Okay. Now, if you remember with the 30, 60, 90 triangle, because that's basically what we're going to try to do here, because notice that here we don't have a point. I don't know what the point here is. But one thing that we can do is that we can bring this down and make a triangle this way. So I know that this guy is going to be 60 degrees. Okay, so if you remember the 30, 60, 90 triangle that we talked about in the first video, we know that the 30, 60, 90 triangle looks something like this. Okay, so if this was 60 degrees, this is 30 degrees. Okay, and this is going to be square root of 3, 1, and 2. Okay, so if I were, so notice that the 30 degrees now has swapped, right? So the one that's right next to the 30 degrees is going to be the square root of 3. So this is square root of 3. Okay, the one that's going to be going up is going to be next to the 60, which in this case is going to be the 1, and the hypotenuse is just going to be 2. Okay, so you can kind of do it this way. Okay, and notice that our x comma y is going to be whatever my x value is, which in this case is square root of 3, and whatever my y value is, which in this case is going to be 1. So we can actually try to figure out what my x and my y is based on the 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay, so now we can figure out what sine of pi over 6 is going to be. So sine of pi over 6 is going to be equal to the y over the r. The y in this case is going to be the y value, which is 1, divided by my r. My r in this case is going to be equal to 2. So it's just 1/2. Okay. Now what's going to be my cosine of pi over 6? The cosine of pi over 6 is going to be equal to my x over the r. My x in this case is equal to square root of 3 divided by 2. Okay, that is my answer. Okay. All right, now let's do another one. Okay, so let's find sine of pi over 4 and cosine of pi over 4. Okay, you can try this out first if you want to, or you can I can just do it with you. So the sine of pi over 4, well, remember that pi over 4 is equal to 45 degrees. Okay, so if you want to do the conversion, you can, and you'll get better at this the more that you practice. So let's first figure out where exactly 45 degrees is at. So 45 degrees, remember here is theta equals 0, here is theta equals pi over 2. So pi over 4 is going to be right in the middle, 45 degrees. Okay, so if I look here, this is going to be pi over 4, or 45 degrees. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did before. I'm going to bring this down, make a 90-degree angle, so I know that this should also be 45 degrees. And if we remember the 45, 45, 90 triangle, if this was 45, this was 45, then this is going to be 1, 1, and square root of 2. Okay, so this is going to be 1, 1, and square root of 2. So my points here are going to be, this one is going to be my x-axis, which is in this case going to be 1, and then my y, which is going to also be 1. Okay, so then the sine of pi over 4 is going to be equal to the x over, that's wrong, the y over the r. Okay, our y in this case is going to be 1 divided by square root of 2. Let's rationalize this. Multiply it by square root of 2 on both top and bottom. Get square root of 2 over 2. Then I'm going to find the cosine of pi over 4. This is going to give me x over r, which is also going to give me 1 over square root of 2. Square root of 2 over 2. Oh, square root of 2 over square root of 2. Rationalizing it, I get square root of 2 over 2. Okay, all right. Now let's do one last problem that's a little bit trickier. Okay, so let's find just the sine of negative pi over 4. Okay, so how do we do with the negatives? Again, you can use your calculator, but I want you to do it this longer way. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure out where negative pi over 4 is going to be. So remember, negative pi over 4 is also equal to negative 45 degrees. So if this was 0, okay, the negative means that I'm going clockwise, which means I'm going this way. So if this is 0, this is also going to be negative 90 degrees. So negative 45 degrees is going to be right here. Okay, so this thing is going to be negative 45 degrees. Okay, or 45 degrees, okay, if you want to think about it that way. But it's just negative because it's going in the opposite direction. Okay, so what I can do is that, let me try to figure out what exactly this is going to be. What is going to be this point? Well, we can still use the 45, 45, 90 triangle. Okay, this is going to be 1, this is going to be 1, this is going to be square root of 2. Now, we have to be very careful because when we talk about quadrants, remember that in quadrant 4, okay, notice that my x is positive, but my y value going down is going to be negative because you're on the y axis. So this point is going to be 1, negative 1 in quadrant 4. Okay. All right. So what is going to be the sine of negative pi over 4? Okay. So the sine of negative pi over 4 is going to be the y over the r. Okay. All right. Now the y is going to be, in this case, the negative 1. And the r is going to be square root of 2. So I multiply it by square root of 2 over and square root of 2. That's going to give me negative square root of 2 over 2. Okay. All right, so that's what that's going to be. So the only tricky part is that you also notice that we were working on the first quadrant. The first quadrant was nice because it was really easy to make this triangle, make the connection. But in the first quadrant, you always have the first values be positive. In the fourth quadrant, the y value is negative. All the points in the y value are going to be negative. Okay, now why are we doing all of these things that the calculator can just do it for us? Well, there's something called the unit circle that actually helps you figure out where everything is at, and this is what the unit circle is. So yeah, so it looks like a lot, and it is a lot, but there's certain ways that you can try to memorize all of these different things. It contains the degrees, and it also has the radians and also the measurements. So in the next video, I'm going to explain what exactly all of this stuff is, and then we'll do a couple more problems.